Welcome to Inspire and Move, the show that inspires you to create, connect, and grow. I'm going to bring you meaningful conversations, aha moments, and all the motivation you need to up-level every part of your life. I'm Ali Aruda, founder of Inspire and Move, and your personal hype girl. I've gone from fashion school to celebrity stylist to corporate marketing to brick-and-mortar entrepreneurship with my husband, each time learning incredible lessons how to pivot, reimagine, and implement the steps to become successful. I'm passionate about inspiring others to live their best life, a life of joy. We have the power to design a life that we love, because life is too short not to. The best part is that you weren't meant to do this alone. If you feel like you are meant for more, let me ride shotgun with you, and together, let's get you to where you want to go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Inspire and Move podcast. I am in studio today, and I am so excited to be at Pearl Street Studio in Burlington, Ontario. And I am joined with a very beautiful, very special guest and a longtime friend of mine, Caleigh Rykiss.
Hi.
Caleigh, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. So great. I feel so cozy. This is very bougie, this setup.
Isn't it nice?
It's
cozy. And you guys, this is so exciting for me because we go way back to our roots of being born and raised in Winnipeg.
Well, tell them where our roots are, because I remember being, I don't know, were we like 5 on the stage of the Wonderful Wedding Show? We were modeling together.
Yes.
Cringe.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can only imagine what we were wearing. But
Big ball gowns.
And our lives in Winnipeg really kind of like crossed over, whether it was, social circles, friends. And then I had a long-term relationship with your dad as my orthodontist for many, many years.
Shout out.
Yeah. Shout out Dr. Rykiss. And I have my really beautiful smile to thank your dad for.
Well, he'll be so happy to hear that.
I love that. And I think what is so exciting for us to get into today is that we are not only from the same place, mm-hmm. we have now both found ourselves in Toronto.
Yep.
Or you in Toronto now, me in Burlington. Mm-hmm. But moving from Manitoba to Ontario with purpose and a plan, and that we've both stayed here. Which a lot of them go home. A lot go back to Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. But you and I, we are grit and we are resilient.
Yeah, we were meant for the big city.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we also have a lot of similarities in what our life has looked like from a career standpoint.
Yeah, professional evolution has been really in step.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is crazy, because we've both been we've been so fluid in our evolution professionally and in our careers. And I always feel like mine feels so random to come from entertainment and then go into fitness and then now into podcasting. It's everyone's like, oh, interesting story. That's very unusual. But then you have such a similar story, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I went from, and I think I even say this in my intro of how I moved to Toronto for Ryerson. I went to school, focused on fashion, and from there got a job at MTV Canada. Mm-hmm. And at the time, you would have probably already been at eTalk.
A producer at eTalk, yeah.
Remind me, did you come to Toronto for school?
I did come to Toronto for school. Fun fact, I actually was in school as a vocal major at York. Thought I was going to be a pop star.
Yeah, you must elaborate.
Thought I was going to be a pop star, ended up hating that program. And it actually just soured my relationship with music, which is unfortunate. But I think, I always feel like the universe has a bigger plan. And I thought, what do I really love to do? And what I really love to do is write. And I thought, I'm going to be a journalist. And I thought at the time journalists had to do political science. And so I was like, I'm going to be a political journalist, a news anchor kind of thing. And then as I approached graduation, I realized that no, I really love pop culture and I love writing about it and talking about it. And I found my way into the magazine industry. At first, I was an intern at Flair magazine.
Classic.
And what I didn't love, I love Flair, but what I didn't love about that job was I wanted to talk about things that happen today and tomorrow, not things that we were predicting were going to happen in 6 months. And so I found that to be really slow. And someone said to me, you should work for a daily TV, entertainment TV show. And I was like, oh my God, right. I've watched Entertainment Tonight my whole life, and I never really realized that could be a career that I could pursue. And then it was like lightning in a bottle. I was like, yep, went to eTalk, got an internship, and worked my way up very quickly just based on where the industry was at. It was a very small team when I got there, and they were growing so fast and they needed hands on deck. And I was like, I'm going to be resourceful. I'm just going to be useful, and I'm going to be indisposable. So whatever the job is, I will do it. If it's teleprompting, if it's tape library, I will literally scrub the floors. Don't care. I will just make myself indispensable. And that's what I did. And then within 5 years was like a senior producer. So yeah, that's that story.
Well, I mean, there's so much I want to go build off of, but I think even just talking about how you approached that job and position is so powerful for people to really hear and think about, because we live in a world now where I think a lot of people want to be like YouTube stars or TikTok stars and just popular as creators. And there is a lot of opportunity for that, but you were not afraid of the hard work and doing what it took.
No, 100%. I think that that's key. And I think we were really raised in a different era, and it's just like a little bit different. The young generation now, I think, because of social media, everything is like instant gratification. Well, we had to grind, and I was not afraid of hard work, and really owed a lot of that work ethic to the success that I found really early. Remember, I was like still in school when I got my internship. So by the time I was a senior producer, I was in my like early 20s, which is pretty wild.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you think about that today, like what that looks like for someone in their early 20s now. I was just having this conversation with someone not too long ago. I think it's one of our trainers actually, about Matt and I, like our relationship of when we met, and I had left a relationship. Like it's wild to think, what life looks like now at a certain age versus then. And you can make that same comparison for, parents that our parents or your friends' parents that got married at, 19 and had a baby at 22. That's so different now of what life looks like for us, especially if you are a high achiever and you want to do great things. That when you were in your internship, you were in school, did you also have a part-time job to bring in money to pay if it's rent or for fun?
I did. Yeah. I worked in retail. I actually was like just a kid who loved to work. I lied about my age and got a job when I was 14 at Esprit at Polo Park Mall in Winnipeg. Like I was so eager to work. I hated school. It wasn't for me. I didn't feel smart or seen in sort of traditional academics. I felt really misunderstood. And I really loved working. I loved engaging with people. I loved fashion. I just loved working, which is, I think, again, rare now. And so, yeah, I always had that part-time job all the way through until I got a paid position.
I swear I've had 3 jobs my whole life until like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Even as an entrepreneur, that I would still have all these other irons and different fires. And I'm the same as you. I'm not afraid of hard work. I love working. When I finished university, I did on like a little mini Europe trip with 2 girlfriends, but I was really excited to come back and start working.
Yeah.
Right now I was like, maybe you should have gone for a little longer.
I never took any time off, which... Yeah, I haven't seen the world really in that way. I've really been so career focused, and part of my healing journey over the last few years, I'm sure we'll get into it, has been like unpacking and sort of like untethering my professional jobs and my professional world from like my sense of self-worth. But I've always had that. It's so interesting. Like I've really always been like, this is who I am and this is what I do as the first kind of thing that's tethered to it. It's very connected.
Like if I were to introduce you to someone and be like, this is my friend Caleigh, like she's an entrepreneur. She's a high achieving, hardworking entrepreneur.
It feels like that really, it feels like that's very descriptive of who I am. And I feel really connected to that. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into it, because I've been so excited to have this conversation, because I have loved watching your journey, but I know it has not all been beautiful.
Well, it's messy, just like everyone else. But, I have my own mess.
And a lot of your story, I think there are so many powerful chapters that are met with grit and resilience.
Thank you.
And obviously then a healing chapter or chapters. So you were at eTalk for about 10 years. And in those 10 years, would you say you also had a passion for fitness and a relationship with fitness?
Yeah, definitely. I was always athletic growing up. I was really into sports. And then in my 20s, when I was at eTalk, I discovered boxing. And I was always into working out, and that was kind of like when boot camps became popular. It was like we were really in the in the birth of that boot camp era. And so I was taking boot camps and working out really hard. And all my friends knew I was really into fitness. And as like a dare, a couple of my guy friends were like, come to this boxing gym across the street. We all lived in the same building. And he was like, come to this boxing gym. And boxing wasn't cool yet. It was like this underground, dirty, gritty,
Smelly,
really intimidating place with mostly men. He was like, come to this boxing class. You'll die. You'll never survive. And I'm like, challenge accepted.
I love that.
So I went to the boxing class. And I just became enamored with boxing, which is so weird. Like I didn't grow up, at all in a sort of aggressive way, or like I was never into combat sports for sure. But I started it and I became obsessed, like truly obsessed. I loved how it made me feel. It was like the first time that I discovered how you could exercise because of how it made you feel versus how it made you look. And I think and I felt so empowered and just so powerful. And I was really, for the first time, like excited to grow a skill. And that is really what kickstarted my journey in fitness and my love story with empowering women through fitness.
And if I remember correctly, you became really good at boxing quite quickly.
Yeah. Well, when I put my mind to something, I ended up competing as an amateur boxer, and all, this sort of dichotomy of like being a fashion producer at eTalk and then sort of like taking off my tutu and putting on my boxing gloves and war paint and getting in the ring and getting punched in the face by men and women, was kind of something that I felt was really quirky and really defined me in a fun way. It was so unique. People were always shocked to hear those two facts about me, and still are. Like when I meet people and I'm like, yeah, I was a competitive boxer. They're like, really? And I was good at it and I loved it. And it really just taught me some amazing, amazing life lessons. And truly, as someone who grew up, dissatisfied with my body, and I had a complicated relationship with body image. My whole, throughout my teens and my early 20s, I really do feel like boxing, I really owe boxing so much to helping me resolve some of those issues and come to terms with my body and then treat it the way it really wanted to be treated, and nourish it and fuel it and do it for the reasons of creating more power and more skill, and ultimately more confidence.
I love that you shared that, because I've known that from following you, that you've been relatively open about your relationship with yourself, like not with yourself, but with your body in the past. And I think it is so interesting that so many of us that are fitness professionals typically also have like some wounds with ourselves and how we have treated our body in the past. Because I've been the same as you, that in my earlier years in Toronto, I think especially coming out of a grief journey after the loss of my brother when I was 18, which was right before I moved to the city, plus going to school for fashion, I was battling, the pain and the grief, but also seeing a lot of models, like very skinny and not even necessarily fit, but I had such a skewed relationship with food. I had a really lousy relationship with the scale. And I think it is so interesting that so many of us in the industry now that have that backstory and what it has looked like to heal that relationship with scale, food, whatever it may be, but ultimately ourselves.
Yeah.
And how long would you say that journey took for you?
I think it's a life journey. Like I don't think we're ever truly there. And I think to continue to try and to work at loving ourselves and to treating it in the best way that we can, and sort of like really undoing some of those bad habits and those bad thought processes. That's like a lifelong thing. I'm never like fully cured. But I would say those, especially 5 years that I spent really honing my skills in boxing and really kind of uncovering what it was that I was unhappy with and why, and just realizing that those things that I thought about myself didn't really exist. Those were self-imposed, and finding things and tools and skills that really made me feel powerful and made me feel worthy. That was such a big part of it. And then ultimately it really gave me purpose in changing the narrative around fitness and weight. I really feel like in that boot camp era that we grew up in, it was so common, for people to yell at us about like counting, calories and whittling our waistline. And it was all of this jargon around working out to be thin, working out to burn calories, working out to attain this unattainable goal that you would just keep kind of spinning to try to find. And I was like, I really feel called to enter the fitness space and undo this language, unlearn it, and really help other people dismantle this damaging language that we were using around fitness and help them find new words for why. Why are we here? Why are we working out? Why are we doing this for ourselves? And ultimately, like, how do we want to feel? Do we want to leave feeling like crap? Do we want to leave feeling like we didn't do enough and like we can't eat later and like, you're working out so you can eat more at your turkey dinner, or you're working out because you ate turkey dinner? Like, which one, it's like, It just felt like so unhealthy, and ultimately was part of my purpose.
Well, I think this is like the most beautiful layup to talking about purpose and love for yourself, love for your body.
Yeah.
Let's unpack the BOLO chapter.
Yeah.
Because that has been, it was so magical to watch you build that. And I think as an entrepreneur, you're also very much a visionary, that you had this crazy, expansive, but such a perfect vision for what you wanted to create. And I would love for you to share like what that vision was and that you took action on it.
Thank you. There were so many problems that I was observing in the industry as a consumer, and as I had such a thirst and this unquenchable thirst for fitness and for these fitness experiences, and really truly felt like nothing was meeting my expectation or my standard of like how I wanted to feel, right? Because I was digging so deep, like, how do I want to feel at the end of a workout? How do I want to feel during a workout? Who do I want to work out with? And what kinds of workouts do I want to do? And I just was finding so many problems. And ultimately, I think, as entrepreneurs, we're just looking for problems to solve and our why. So some of the issues that I found that I was getting frustrated with were, again, the language around fitness and just how unhealthy that was. And I couldn't find a space where I really felt like people were guiding fitness experiences in a healthy way with healthy language. So that was one of the things I wanted to do. I wanted to create a healthy space, and a space where we didn't talk about weight ever. That was a mandate. None of my trainers, we really talked about what kind of language can we use and what's empowering and what's disempowering, and trying to really curate that language really intentionally. The other problem I had was in boxing. There were no boxes. There was like either those dirty, dingy boxing studios that I went to, that I was brave enough to go to, but that are pretty intimidating and not inclusive. And then there was sort of the like pop gum, like very fitness driven boxing workouts, no shade, but you can't really learn how to properly box in those studios. So it was like that fitnessy experience that really, I think, degraded the technical aspects of the sport, or the gritty place that nobody really wanted to go to because they were scary. So I was like, could I create a place also where we could make this an inviting space for people to try the sport and learn to do it right, but also give them that energetic experience? Another problem that I felt was that at the time I had left eTalk, but I was still in my journalism era. I was a freelance journalist, and I had deadlines to meet, but I was not working in an office, and I had meetings to take and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, there's really nowhere to go, and it's so inefficient. Like, so you have to find like a Starbucks or a coffee shop to take a meeting, but then you have to go to your workout, and then you have to go. And I found there was lots of wasted time where
inefficiencies.
Yeah, inefficiencies where you like couldn't find a good meal at Starbucks, so you have to stop here. So you're stopping at 10 places before you're really meeting your needs. And then ultimately something gets sacrificed. And then also when you're at a fitness experience, when you go to a class, I found we were making connections maybe, but there was nowhere to intentionally develop those friendships. Like it would kind of be this awkward, like, I guess I'll see you next week in class versus, could we create a space where people could go in their gym clothes without leaving the studio where they could develop those relationships further? So I had all these kind of like things in my mind of things I wanted to do. And part of the efficiency too, I was like, people are afraid to work out because they have a board meeting after, and women don't want to have their hair sweaty. So I also wanted to potentially create something that would help us sacrifice fewer things and get more done. And not in that like hustle shame kind of way, but more in like this is important to me and I don't want to sacrifice looking great in a way that makes me feel good moving into whatever my next thing is, whether it's a date or a board meeting or whatever, picking the kids up at carpool, and I just want to feel great. So suddenly, if you would ask me a year before if I was gonna, if opening a bricks and mortar studio was on my radar, I would have said, are you kidding me? That sounds like a pain in the ass and a headache. Absolutely not. Suddenly I was like, it hit me like a lightning bolt. And I was like, well, I guess I have to open like a 10,000 square foot facility where I can have multiple types of workouts. That includes boxing, where I can create an inclusive environment where we talk about fitness and bodies and confidence and empowering people in a better way. And then also has a third space where we can congregate and have a healthy meal and do what you need to do and get all the things you need to get done and sacrifice less time. And then also put in a blow dry bar so that women, if they wanted to, could get a service that would make them feel confident and empowered to move on to their next destination. And that's how BOLO was born. I said, I'm going to call it Body Love. I decided that on the moment. I was at brunch with my husband on a napkin, just like the cliche.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
And I'm like, what does this look like? Body Love, da-da-da. And I already had a marketing plan, and away we went.
I know the story, but I'm like sitting here watching and listening. I was like, oh, it's the best vision ever. Like, I don't know, for anyone listening or watching, does that not sound like the dream gym? And it's not really a gym. It's a fitness club destination where you can go there. You can spend all day there.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur who's also passionate about fitness, that's a perfect, and was it membership based?
You could drop in for a class. You could drop in for a coffee. You could drop in for a blowout.
Yeah.
Or you could get a membership. What I also wanted to do was, especially because I was part-time as a fitness professional already at that time, I also wanted to create a space for fitness professionals where they never wanted to leave, where they felt also like their time was being, seen and managed in a way where they could fully access all of the time. Mm-hmm. So in between clients, they could go into the cafe and open their laptop and get a healthy smoothie and do that in a beautiful environment, and especially in a place where we have winter half of the year, like not have to bundle up and go outside and find all these things. Like it's right here, and everything you need is right here. So that was for the members, the community, and also for the staff.
I remember even going sometimes for press events that you would have clients that would, reserve whatever it looked like, and they would host events there between a class and then the more of like reception area in the workspace. And
brilliant.
It was.
Yeah.
And I know I've also like popped in the past when I've been in Toronto for a day or a meeting that I would go in for coffee and, in whatever outfit I'm wearing. But I remember BOLO had great coffee. So I'd pop in, grab this, maybe grab a smoothie, carry on my way.
Yeah. I felt the coffee had to be really high quality. I also just as a entrepreneur who looks at problems, like I was like, oh my God, everyone that opens a gym is losing so much opportunity because everyone after their workout class is going to a coffee shop with their girlfriend. Mm-hmm. So why are we giving that money away to another brand? Like, why don't we just bring this in-house and really own this space? But that's a bold move because not only did I have zero business experience, right? Like I'm coming from media. We didn't even talk about money. We didn't talk about money. I just interviewed people and produced content. I had zero idea how to do this. I had no skills. And so to do it, but to actually take on what I didn't realize, I was really taking on three industries, like fitness, food and beverage, and beauty. Was incredibly ambitious. I think almost the fact that I was like naive to what I was doing, I almost didn't know how big of a job it was going to be, really played in my favor.
So and maybe figured it out.
Yeah, and I didn't know what the pitfalls could be. So I was just really leading with optimism. I was leading with a very specific vision. No one could tell me no. No one could tell me that it wasn't going to work. I really had a specific vision. And I think, now having lost it due to, the pandemic and things and seeing some of the issues that can arise, I almost missed that optimism that I had because now I'm very cautious, but I had zero caution. I was a man on a mission and like, it was just so clear to me. But it was a huge undertaking, getting into all three industries at one time.
Is it something that you went into nervous and scared, or was it purely like, were you operating from that joy perspective, that optimism and excitement?
Yeah, no, I did not have one fear. I was not like, there was not one moment where I was like, is this a good idea? Like, or should I phone a friend? Like, should I call a lifeline? I just went for it.
And you led a team. Like, you had a relatively, I say, large quote unquote team of trainers for sure. But then also you have your stylists and your baristas and smoothie makers.
Yeah, we had like 45 staff at sort of peak operation.
And how did that shape you from a leadership standpoint? What did you do to be, the best version of yourself as not only the business owner, but also as a leader?
Yeah, the leadership piece. And again, I had never led a team. I had never even had an assistant. Like I really went into this with no experience, but the leadership piece of it was probably the piece I was most passionate about and still feel has become part of my calling, was creating a culture within the business and leading a team with intention and with joy and with a very curated set of values. That became so critical to the business of BOLO. I think the reason why we were so successful so quickly was because the culture was so infectious within the team. They all loved each other. We were all living the same purpose. We felt like really aligned in our values. And the way that I hired was so intentional in that way, was bringing people on board who really shared, similar issues to me, who had similar outlooks on things. And that culture really vibrated through the space and into the community. And leading that team was one of the greatest joys and one of the things I'm most proud of. And with everything I do and with every company now that I consult for, helping people develop that culture is so critical, I think, to the success of a business. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Oh, I totally do. And I'm so passionate about cultivating community as well, which I think when you have a great team, but it all starts with the top.
Yeah.
So, your vision, or whoever it looks like from a ownership standpoint, that vision, that attitude and that energy filters down to the team, which then filters down to your members and your community. Yeah. What is something that you have done, like even just to keep yourself in like a high energy place where you can operate from? Like, are there things that you tap into to make sure that you're always being that best version of yourself that you can then lead your team and inspire the community?
Yeah, I think I've always been, I had, throughout my time at BOLO, she called herself an energy healer, but really she was like an alternative therapist. I think she, the predominant thing that she did was Reiki, but we didn't do any Reiki. We just talked, and she just really was like a coach for me. And that was really the first time I felt like, oh, this is what it feels like to have a really special person helping me nurture myself and heal myself and get clear on what I want and kind of let go of any negative self-talk and any negativity. So that was really, Sarah was such a critical piece of that puzzle for me. And then eventually I felt like it was so powerful that I ended up bringing in a coach for the team.
Ooh, I love that.
And I hired a coach, not the same one as me, because I thought that was, that would maybe be crossing boundaries. But I brought in someone who I felt was, again, aligned with us and could support the team in that way. It wasn't me. So if they had issues or if they felt sticky or stuck or if something fell off, they could go to her and she would meet with them one-on-one every month, and then meet with us as a team to get clear on our vision and our values. And again, just really staying true to the culture that we really wanted to build and feel strong as a unit doing that.
Oh, I love that.
It was powerful.
I applaud you for that, especially as a leader. That's amazing.
It's hard because it's, we're always trying to make everything financially more efficient. Mm-hmm. And I really felt like, and I fought for creating a space in the budget to make sure that the team and the culture was nurtured. And I also understand that it can get complicated sometimes between employer and employee. And that was something. My relationship with my team was very unique and very special. We were like best friends. We called each other family. We were so tethered. And yet I was also their leader and their boss. And sometimes as a leader and a boss, you have to make difficult decisions. You have to have difficult conversations. You have to hold people to task. You have to hold people accountable. And sometimes people don't like that. I mean, most of the time it's human nature to not love those conversations. And I'm a people pleaser. So there was a lot of, a lot of elements of those relationships that were tricky. And I really wanted to have someone as an in-between that they could go to, that wouldn't make it weird for us.
I love that. And is that something that you still have? Like, do you still work with a coach? Do you still have, a wide variety of things that you do from a personal development, business development standpoint?
I have a therapist now. Sarah and I are still close friends and she's amazing. I have a traditional therapist now. I really felt like when BOLO closed during the pandemic, I had some serious work to do and healing a lot of things. So I've been working with a therapist who I adore. She's also a business coach, but she's also a traditional psychotherapist. So she has a science-based kind of approach if that's what I need. She also has a coaching approach if that's what I need. Sometimes we have calls about my business ideas and which direction I want to go in and, the leader I want to be and all of that kind of thing. And then sometimes we have, sessions where she's more vibing with the emotional piece and things that I'm still healing and things I want to unpack in that way. So I find her to be an immense asset to me because she can go in both directions. Mm-hmm. And, you never know where we're going to go until we get on the call. And then it's like, wow, I didn't know I needed that.
My coach is the same. She
Love
has
that.
years of experience as a therapist. And that's what I actually was initially drawn to her for. I was like, I think I have some grief work to do. But it's actually been what I get really fired up on is the expansive chats from business, money mindset, goals. And I get really, really fired up to talk about those things. Mm-hmm. So they're like little unicorns that we find and keep them close.
Yeah, very special.
Thank you so much for listening. If you loved this episode, it would mean so much to me if you took a few seconds and shared this on social media, sent it to a friend, or left a 5-star review. There is power in community, and I'm so grateful to have you part of mine.